if you're someone who is launching a product soon, but you're dragging your feet, you're feeling a little overwhelmed and lost because you don't really know how you're going to go from where you are today to actually launching the product and starting to see success, this interview is for you. In today's video, we're actually taking a look at how Brodie Wilkinson from Big Spoon Pillow was able to take a really overcomplicated launch process and actually just hit nose to the grindstone and launch his product in 30 days with zero audience, and how in the first 3 weeks he's been able to clear over $4,000 in revenue with 27 orders. So let's get into it. Hey Brodie, so excited to have you here.
Good to see you, Khierstyn.
So before we get into the juiciness of kind of what are some of the steps that you took to go from your first social media post for Big Spoon Pillow into getting 27 orders and going from there, I would love to just learn a little bit more about what Big Spoon Pillow is for the audience and kind of how you got started with that.
You bet. Well, I think it's a product that's kind of one of the first of its kind. It's a pillow that's designed for couples to cuddle and watch TV in comfort. Basically, if you're cuddling on the couch with your partner, I always found that your arm would fall asleep, and it solves that solution. Super comfortable on its own, and yeah, I've launched it to the world, and I'm super excited.
And I love the name. Like, I honestly couldn't believe that something like, with that name hadn't really existed. And like, I completely resonate because for me, like, I don't cuddle because my shoulder just kills after like 20 minutes. So I'm like, all right, I guess we're just going to stick to opposite sides of the couch. So
Yeah, I found once I started looking into it and that it was a problem of my own, that almost everyone I knew and worked with had the same situation. And I initially was calling it the Chillo because Netflix and Chillo, but it existed as a brand, and I sat on it for a long time, and I was like, well, it's spooning, and the Big Spoon just really was. I think it's an awesome brand. I've trademarked it in Canada, which is exciting. I think it describes exactly what it is.
Yeah. And so when it comes to coming up with an idea for a product, there's two ways to do it. You can either do the keyword research, which is go on Amazon, see what's hot, and just kind of piggyback off that, or you design something for yourself that is truly unique, or it's like a new spin improvement on a product. And this is really unique. I'd love to hear kind of the origin story for how you actually got the idea for Big Spoon Pillow and how you decided that this was the idea that you were going to kind of pursue.
Inventor and an idea guy even from when I was a young kid, and I've even went through the process of developing other products and looking into patents on several other ideas, and then at some point found out that they existed, that they were already out there in the world. So with the Big Spoon, in hindsight, you could always pick something that maybe had a higher margin or whatever, but it was that I was in love with the idea. And if you're not in love with the idea, then there's no sense putting the energy into it. Like, I had taken face or FBA courses, which are for Facebook or Amazon bestsellers, but I just didn't want to sell ice cube trays for Circle whiskey cubes like someone else, because there's just too much competition. It's like I don't just need to create something out there in the world. And I was passionate about the Big Spoon, so it came up when my wife and I were in an automotive accident, and we were spending a lot of time on the couch in our recovery. We just wanted to be close to each other and couldn't do a lot else but watch, Game of Thrones episode after episode. And we just couldn't be comfortable. Once our injuries had healed enough that we weren't physically impeded, it was just the regular old thing. Your arm, your neck, you couldn't be in that position for very long, and you wanted to be. So I literally couldn't use pillows from the couch. I couldn't use pillows from the bed because they just don't do it. So I took some memory foam pillows and cut them and glued them and put them in a thing, and it's like, wow, this works. Like, you need the void for your arm. Worked really well for us, and we used it for a long time, and it just kind of was a thing. But I returned to work, and I was, talking to the guys about it, and they're like, yeah, it's a problem. And I was just like, it is a problem. It is a problem. So I started looking online, and there's nothing that you could buy to solve the solution that I had solved on my own. And, time passed as it does with life, but then I was just like, it was always there. It was like, I've always wanted to be an inventor. I always loved creating things. I've owned other businesses. I want another new business of my own, because the business we had at the time of the accident ended because of the accident and, just the logistics of it.
Yeah.
So I got just poured more energy into it. And then I just started refining it and building it better and building it better. And it kept going.
I love that you had an idea that you thought was cool and you started just floating that with the guys at work and started to get more traction, more validation that way. But there's a level of validation that, because I think that any idea that I brought to my mom, she'd be like, "Oh, sweetie, I love you. Like, it's great." And there's a big difference between what people saying it's a good idea and it actually being something that can be a scalable, viable product for a business that you can scale. So I'd love to know what process you went through to take that from like, hey, the guys think this is cool, to actually something that you're willing to put money behind, develop a prototype, and just go from there.
Yeah. So with the, FBA training, I used some online resources like Viral Launch and Helium 10. You can actually
Yes,
do
yes, yes.
research and see just what, knockoff private label products are selling per month. So I took similar products like just pillows, weighted blankets, existing, claimed cuddle pillows, whether it's a boyfriend pillow or there are pillows that have channels in them that are supposed to be made for cuddling and sleeping, and went to the reviews and saw the reviews weren't great. What was wrong with them? Okay, how could I fix it? You know, into the development and the commitment, I found that at some point in the 90s, someone had launched like a cuddle pillow for couples to watch TV. They got some press
Okay.
time on, like, syndicated television, like Good Morning America. So I'm like, well, they got press time. It was a
Yeah.
business. It was old. It wasn't the right time. I saw how I could make mine superior. So I saw opportunity. And I just, you constantly hit Google. Does it exist? Is it out there? What's the closest thing? And the Helium 10 revealed that you can make crazy volumes of sales if you hit it with a product and that's what you're good at. And it can be more than a successful business for, a private individual or a corporation. So that led me to be like, yeah, there's something in this pillow. It doesn't exist. And then I talked to, people who were strangers about, hey, do you have this problem on the couch? Our different age groups, it was a problem and there wasn't a ready available solution on the market. So I thought, hey, let's put some more time and energy into it. And that's what I did. And it evolved.
So strangers, like who were these people?
Well, so people that, because I worked on a television set, people that I'd met, they are called, coworkers, but they weren't in my sphere. They didn't know me.
Yeah.
You got feedback from blogs. There's an episode in Mallrats, literally, which is a movie 20 years old, where Brodie,
Yeah, yeah.
conveniently the character, same name as myself, is like talking about that exact issue. It's kind of like in the cultural zeitgeist, the sleeping arm. Yeah, you're crushed by your partner's head, so it's known.
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. Um, and I love that you hit on something before we started recording that I wanted to get into, where um, I can almost tell if somebody, okay, please, I say this with a grain of salt because this doesn't always apply, but whenever I get someone on a call in the beginning who won't tell me what their product
Mm-hmm.
is, I know they're going to have a lot harder time bringing that product to market than someone like you who had this idea. No trademark, no patent protection. You just started talking to random people about it to kind of float the idea. And there's a big difference between that, because there's a level of insecurity and fear that happens when people are like, my idea is so good it's going to get ripped off too early. And that's a very real fear for everyone, because when you start to put a product out there that you're kind of pre-patent, pre-trademark, you are really putting your trust in it that someone's not going to rip you off too early. So for that, how did you go through that fear of like, you've got something really, really good and you're early stage? How did you personally like get over that hurdle so you could just say screw it and start talking
Well,
about it?
totally. Here's like the biggest reality is your fear is going to prevent you from accomplishing your dreams and what you want. And the reality is that unless you're talking to someone who is like an exact expert in your product or market who could execute tomorrow with infinitesimal ease, Average
Yeah.
person isn't going to steal your idea. Like, oh my God, with the big spoon pillow, I'm like 3 years in. Sure, the launch happened in a rapid period of time when I decided I was going to do it, but the amount of
Yeah.
work, the average person doesn't have the bandwidth or the ability to do that. So, like, literally, strangers on the street will be like, oh, that's an amazing idea. But you think they're going to go home and like leave their job and take a hiatus or leave of work and risk everything on your idea? They don't have the passion, they don't have the ability, and they don't have the knowledge that you do. So, like, literally, polling complete strangers on a bus, if you ride the bus, sit down and ask them, strike up a conversation on the plane. Those people give you feedback that you need. And the earlier you can do that, you're going to know that you're barking up the right tree or the wrong tree.
Yeah, my favorite Tim Ferriss quote is that one can steal ideas, but nobody can steal passion or execution.
Yeah, completely. And I think for me, part of it also is because of my television and film industry. I spent years pitching television ideas. And the truth is, you think your idea is unique and original. Like, I thought nobody had ever thought of something like the big spoon pillow forever, right? But you dig hard enough, and someone at the exact same time is having the idea. Is just who's going to execute sooner and get it done, right? Like I said, I found a similar product marketed in the 90s. It was called the Armadillo. And then with the patent, because I've applied for IP, you find all kinds of
Yeah.
similar products. It turns out there's a patent for a pillow that's made for couples to cuddle and watch television. That's what it says in the description. And that's the patent I'm defending against because mine's superior in my belief and will prove to be one that's accepted by the market, and the execution and the looks and the aesthetic and the design. And that's what you need to do is somehow
Yeah.
differentiate your product even to an existing product.
Yeah. And there is a difference between talking to random people and then starting to post on social media, starting to build the wait list, starting to market a product and taking sales for it. Because, like, what it sounds like is you were getting feedback while you had filed the trademark, which took a couple years. You were getting feedback privately while you were doing patent pending. So you did the what you needed to do to protect it before you went public with it. Is that right?
That's right. I designed the big spoon pillow with the thoughts that, hey, as an inventor, maybe I could license it to someone in an existing manufacturing situation or marketing company, pillow company. And so I wanted the IP. That's important. And I thought it was important. I talked to some people that suggested it was important. Of course, lawyers and people taking your money are going to tell you it's important.
Yeah,
I got
no bias there,
advice
right?
from other people that said, hey, it's a waste of time. Just jump right in, get stock, do it, and go. But when something's completely unique and original, you can't just go to Alibaba and start selling it and test the markets. So I went all in. It was a big risk. And when I did decide to, okay, I'm going to post in the public and get the public feedback, your fingers are crossed. It's like, is there going to be enough people? Is there going to be enough interest? And is the market going to love this product as much as I do? Because at some point, you can always get blinders on as well.
Yeah, yeah, totally. So, one thing I found super interesting in your product journey is that you started thinking you wanted to go to Amazon. You went through the FBA route, which is great for getting your feet in the door, but you're selling commoditized products. You are competing on price. You're going into a super competitive space and you're not building a brand typically. But you had said, screw that. I want to go and design my own thing. I would love to know with Big Spoon, why did you decide to launch it on Shopify and not go to Amazon right away?
Well, Amazon is a whole beast of its own, Shopify on your own, but I there's something super interesting about owning my brand and building a brand, which is what you would have to do on Amazon either way. So going to Amazon, no one's going to have any idea what a big spoon is as they are just learning what it is right now. So the people
Yeah.
know it's a problem, and now they're like, "Oh, aha! There's a solution, and hopefully this is the best solution on the market." There's a lot of things in Amazon in the back end that I just don't really like. I feel like you're never ever only customers, and you're giving up a lot of potential profit just to pay someone else. So Amazon's not out of the cards in the future, but I want to build the brand right now. I really looked into Kickstarter, to be honest. And I spent,
Yeah.
over a year ago when I in development, and there was, or even 18 months ago, like listening to podcasts, really looking into Kickstarter. I purchased things on Kickstarter. It's an amazing platform, but it
Hmm.
just seemed like it was really expensive to launch on Kickstarter. And boy, my launch has been, you need to have all your ducks in a row, excuse me, to like perfectly execute a launch on Kickstarter, or it's just not going to gain the traction. And there's just so much risk in that regard for me, I thought, that I could grow more organically on Shopify. And I was literally your YouTube, and when I initially came across you, it was like, why not to use Kickstarter or something to that effect? And it really just hit home with where I was sitting and my comfortable level of, being and using Kickstarter.
I wouldn't say it's a comfort thing. I created that video because, and by the way, I've linked up to it somewhere here, but I made that video because Kickstarter just seems like the obvious choice until you're on the other end and you're like, wow, I spent all of my money that I needed for inventory on marketing, and great, I've raised a couple, $200,000, but now I need to go raise more capital because I can't pay for inventory or whatever, right? And so when you look at the practicality of it, it's like, what is your end goal? And if your end goal is to get proof of concept, start to build a brand, and start to take pre-orders in a way that's not going to break the bank, I guess that's where the Shopify track is so great, because even though, yes, on Shopify you have to bring 100% of your traffic, but you just have so much more flexibility. You're not married to a 30-day launch timeline where you need to bring in a certain amount of sales in a day, otherwise everything's just kind of gone. It's just a lot more flexible, and you can really take out the middleman and go straight to the customer yourself.
Yeah, and I was of the mindset of like, okay, I'm going to dump X amount of finances and I'm going all in to make this possible, and I have the finances. If you don't have it, then maybe Kickstarter is what you have to do, but how are you going to come
Mm-hmm.
up with the 20, 30,000 for the advertising to launch a Kickstarter? It's kind of a chicken before an egg. So I was like, I would rather invest that money in my IP and my inventory, and my initial order that I'm self-financing of 1,000 pillows will always be there, and that's
Yeah.
money in the bank when they're sold. So that was the way that I was going to do it. And then it was like, well, if you're going to build your own e-commerce website, Shopify just seemed like the easiest and simplest place to do it. And that's,
Yeah.
what you recommend for your clients. And I came across and decided to start working with you, and just that value's been incredible. So like, just like, yeah, follow the steps. It doesn't matter if it's Wix or whatever. You have to do it. You have to execute this, that, and that. There's 1,000 products and 1,000 ways to do it. Just pick one and do it, or it's never going to happen.
Yeah. And so at this point in the timeline, you mentioned like you've been working on Big Spoon for 3 years. 2 and 3/4 of that was product development, sourcing, all the things. And about a month ago, you're like, let's go. And
That's right.
then you launch.
Yeah, I
So
knew that there was a timeline coming up. I really wanted, there's a deadline that I wanted to, had an audition with Dragon's Den, so I wanted to be able to leverage and have that. And I wanted to have a product launched for then. And then you were, in the background kind of, and I was like, okay, now it's time to really like, pay up, start working with Khierstyn. And then really just kicked me into gear. And then when we sat down and talked, it's like, okay, if you want to reverse engineer for this appearance in May, you need to
May.
have a certain time period. And it was basically like, hey, Valentine's is coming up. If you can't do Valentine's, like I was late to hit that buzz, but it's like, it'll be there next year. The Valentine's post, my first post was on Valentine's Day. So like, just do it. And okay, it's going to be in like 8 days. All right. Everything was already registered. I had all the social media accounts sitting there idle like a year. They were completely empty and unpopulated with no followers. So the brand existed. Like, all my ducks were in a row. I had the content for the pillows. I had the website registration. I had the domains. I had the business. Like, I knew I was going to do it. It was just like, when was it going to happen? When was it going to happen? In a
Right.
unique situation where 100% of my energy outside of being a father, so my working energy, is going into the business right now. I'm not juggling another job. So it was like, I was able to like boom, 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 start crossing things off the list, and then just throw up the first post and populate the other social media accounts, which are all Big Spoon Pillow at Big Spoon Pillow. You're right. I was amazing that I got all the branding that I wanted, and then
Yeah.
just hit it. So it happened pretty quick when it was like, okay, you reverse engineer it and you pick a date. It doesn't matter what date. You just got to hit that date and then just do it. There's all kinds of ways to prepare for a launch, and there's a mental mindset to a launch and everything. But I just kind of did it pretty quick and dirty.
Yeah, and so before we dig into more the granularity of what you did, some stats: no paid ads, no email list when you were starting. Literally, you created social media accounts and we're starting from literal zero. So, of the 27 sales you've had and over 4,000 in revenue at this point, what is your split between, like, where did your sales come from at this
Yeah,
point?
so like 70% of my sales have come from family and friends, people that I had an introduction to. And then the rest have been like natural organic sales from people that don't know me. They made a known friends of friends. It came from, the analytics, like a lot of Facebook traffic, I guess. Um,
Yep.
a couple Instagram sales, and then we did some free media with local media, which brought in the views to the website, like several hundred views a day to the website, and that trickled into one sale here, two sales there, and so there's been 27 units, and it's not like it's a small ticket item. Like I would like to have this price lower. It's $169, but I'm absorbing all the shipping, which is expensive for any product that you launch online on first, because I didn't want that to be a negative sticking point in the checkout process. So it's a higher end product. So I think some people are, nobody knows me, nobody knows the brand. It's a pre-order. People is on my website. It's clear you're not going to get it for 90 days. If they were shipping within a week, people would already have the first ones that ordered 3 weeks ago. But so it takes a lot of faith to spend $170 on a stranger on a website that you don't know. So that's why, the family and friends were a bit of a kickstart. And I that was no prep for them either. It was like just boom, hey guys, some emails and then some social media. So it was a surprise.
Yeah. So one thing you mentioned before we hit record, because we have a conversation before we start recording, and then I was like, oh wait, I gotta save that question for when we're recording. So one thing you mentioned before was like before you just said you were kind of overwhelmed, overcomplicating the launch process. And there was a time that something just clicked for you and you're like, why can't I just launch in 3-4 weeks? Everything that you've been working on for 3 years, suddenly you stopped overcomplicating it and you got focused. I'd love to hear kind of what your headspace was when, like, what exactly were you overcomplicating and what was the thing that got you to think, you know what? I'm getting in my own way. I just need to go.
Well, subconsciously, there's always the fear, right? You're going to throw your baby out there. That's a big one. So once you've gotten over your own internal resistance, then it's just the logistics of it and the timing, and you just gotta go ahead and do it. For me, with this specific product, it was that, okay, whenever I offer, I need a window in time that I'm going to physically have to deliver the product. And I was
Okay.
having a point that it was really sticky and tough to like nail down a manufacturer for the product. So I want to be able to deliver and promise to deliver and not just be kicking the can down the road, kicking the can down the road. And there was a moment in time that happened to line up around the launch, which made it possible that I, secured who was going to manufacture it, had a good meeting, and that's been achieved. So if you can't
Excellent.
deliver the product, then,
Don't start taking
yeah,
orders.
don't necessarily launch because then, chargebacks or returns or refunds, you're just going to lose all that momentum and that could kill you.
That's a really good point, actually, because I think that you launched when you had confidence in your timeline.
That's
And I think is that
That
accurate?
that's totally accurate. Yeah, like I knew I was going to be able to execute without misleading anyone, and I'm a forthright and honest business person, so I want to fulfill and change. The product is to change people's lives, and so if I can't deliver it, I'm not changing anyone's life for the better.
Yeah. And so I want to take a second and like highlight this because um, with Shopify, you don't have to spend months building this big audience. You can literally launch and start taking money. But the big difference between a Shopify launch and a Kickstarter launch is that Kickstarter backers know that they're waiting months for product. 6 to 12 months sometimes. And when it comes to Shopify customers, not many of your customers are even maybe know what a pre-sale is. And so there's a shorter window where you have to be able to deliver a lot faster. So Brodie, you saying, okay, 3 months out from like I've locked in the manufacturer, I know we're getting product and we can deliver in 3 months. That's like that 90-day window is when you could start looking back and saying, okay, if I can deliver June 1st, it means 3 months before then, I can launch my store April 1st. That's going to be enough time that I know we're able to deliver. And before that, because if you launch in like January when you don't even know when you can fulfill, you're right. That's when you're just going to get either people coming to your website and seeing like, oh, I'm going to come back in 6 months because I don't know what's up. Or after 4 months, they're emailing you wondering where their product is. So 3 months is a really great window where as soon as you locked in that shipment date, you're like, great, what's that 90 days? Okay, that's about a month from today. And at that point, when you kind of work with the end in mind of the fulfillment schedule, launch date happens and then hustle happens.
Totally. Yeah. And, you know, timing wise in the year, I would have preferred my launch to probably have been, you know, in October, November when people are full winter cuddle time. But like I didn't
Totally.
want to wait another entire year. It just wouldn't have been productive, and it would have been a waste of time and energy. So it was what it was. But there was that window of 90 days. I've been totally be like straight up on the website everywhere. It's pre-order, it's pre-order, it's pre-order. The confirmation email is it's a pre-order. Everyone that's ordered to this point, I followed up with a personal email saying, hey, this is the date. It's the end of June delivery date. This is what's happening. The molds are being made. And then those initial people I'm trying to really create into fanatics that can follow me through this process. They took a leap of faith to invest in the product early on, and they'll be rewarded by like, you know, intimate interaction and being part of the story. And then I just can't wait till it's in their hands and they can enjoy it and start getting the feedback, because I've had everyone that's laid on the pillow as a prototype, you know, huge smiles on their face and loving it. So
Like, this is comfortable. Yeah. With that being said, when we look at what that kind of build up before launch was, friends and family, you had local press, which by the way, low hanging fruit, great thing. Like you live in small town BC, right? On the West Coast. And sometimes people don't go for press because they think, well, the New York Times isn't going to cover me. You don't have to go that big. You can actually start with really interesting, good, easy, low hanging fruit. Easy. Local entrepreneur stories. Small towns and cities love to rep alumni from your past college or university. They want to see initiatives that have come up, especially if you've got a mission or a great story behind what you're doing. So that was genius to go after those small town publications, because a lot of people don't think to do that. Clearly that worked. In your build up, remind me, did you build a wait list?
I had absolutely
Like, did you build a
no
bit of an
wait
email list?
list. I literally, like
Cool.
in that 30-day period, didn't even have a Shopify website. I had a domain sitting on GoDaddy from the, you know, early origins of the idea when I chose the brand. Like boom, Shopify free account or you know 10-day trial, and then it's $2 for the first 3 months. So I'm still in the first, you know, still only paying $2 a month, and I've already had sales, which is amazing. I've had payouts to the bank account, right? Uh,
So you just went live
yeah,
and you're like, I'm
yeah,
live.
I had.
Buy my product.
Yeah, it was, you know, in the private view while you were building it. Had a couple people take a look at it with a password, including yourself, and then it was just like turn it on, do a test transaction. My wife bought the first pillow with a real credit card, and it went through. And then, you know, phoned up my brother, you know, and had a friend from Florida who bought the next one full pop and paid US shipping, and he was like, okay, it's happening. Like there's a sale. It's my brother said it's a seamless checkout. It works good, and it was there. So that was pretty crazy, like, and it happened fast. But as I said, I had everything to
So fun.
populate the website. I'd been thinking about it. I watched a video that's like, these are the 10 things you have to have for a high converting e-commerce thing. And then I wrote out on a piece of paper, like, that's a perfect way to build a website, is like Pretend
Yes.
this is your screen. Here's your homepage. Okay, right homepage. What do you want? I want a picture of a pillow here and a tagline here and a button there, right? And then each page, keep it simple and small. Like I found, like nobody's went to the About Us page. No people. The average time on my page, even though I'm super interested, is like people are spending a minute. They're going to the checkout, leaving or buying. So
Hmm.
it's really
Which is,
different time in our life where people's attention is short.
yeah, talking to you is so refreshing because I think as a society, launches have gotten so, I mean, startups, go to market, have just gotten so inflated with things you need to do, and because of it people drag their feet because the open rate isn't perfect, or they're not comfortable on video, or they need the beautiful big website, or they need the investor. Like sometimes you just have to take it back to its core and do a simple launch, because what you just did, let's say Big Spoon went the other direction where you launched it and literally no sales. That, by just ripping off the band-aid and going to market fast and starting to take pre-orders for a product, suddenly you know that, oh, this isn't a viable product. Cool, I can move on to the next thing. As opposed to what I've seen in the market, which is people will sit on product ideas for years and they will spend 6 months orchestrating this big six-figure launch just to underperform and be like, what happened? Sometimes we just have to simplify it so that you have an idea quickly of, is this going to work? Why is it working? Okay, let's start simple and then get complex.
Yeah, I think if in hindsight, like I had renderings for a long time and I had more crude prototypes, that I would have started the social media earlier just to get into the flow and the practice and to get more of a buzz, and then probably pushed to just like a landing sign up page. So I would have had a little bit of an emailing list that were strangers because, even in just the 3 weeks, I've collected like 200 people email profiles off of the website, and like 80% of them are complete strangers, just a simple offering. So those are people that haven't purchased the product mostly. And there's an opportunity that once the product's in stock and it's not a pre-sale, or maybe once I can get my margins down a little bit, that they're potential customers, like they're in my pipeline until I've ruined my relationship by sending them too many emails and they unsubscribe. That's an opportunity, which is pretty amazing. And for me personally, just once I went to the social media, although there weren't buyers, just like literally, dozens upon dozens, if not hundreds of comments of like, wow, it's here. This is amazing. The first person that was like, take my money. I want one right now. They haven't necessarily ordered in this moment, but it just goes to show that the hype and the belief in the product was just validation after a lot of work. And to get that earlier in the process was probably more important because you see it all the time. People dump piles of money at the point where I am with a product that just is potentially not viable. And man, that would be heart wrenching and expensive and a setback.
But then and you can pivot, you can adapt. Um, can I, the coach in me wants to say something. Can I give you some feedback? Okay. Because the way you talk is the way most, like 99% of startups talk in this one specific thing. You launch your product, and within a couple weeks, you had like a couple hundred emails, and you have 27, 28 customers at this point. You had what you said was, okay, well, if they joined our list, I'm paraphrasing here. So if they joined our list and did not buy right now, maybe they're just waiting 3 months until it's in market. Not necessarily. It's not a black or white launch. Oh, I'm just going to wait, because what you're doing is you are assuming that people aren't buying because it's pre-order. So instead, what you want to do is see your customer relationship like a journey. So it's not like, hey, we launched today and 12 people bought, so no one's ever going to buy, or it's not like that. It's more, sometimes people have to be warmed up and they've got to be nurtured. And so the kinds of things that I would see is, I think that you're going to see more sales trickling in from the original list that you have, but sometimes they want to see a production update. Sometimes maybe it's just they forgot to buy. Maybe it's the next blog you send out with cuddling tips. They're like, oh man, I love this guy. I'm going to buy this pillow. Maybe it's FAQs. Maybe they are waiting. So I wouldn't think it so much as black and white, more like, okay, we've got a ton of leads and some of them are going to convert at different stages.
Yeah, you have to. That's a great reminder. Your end customer and the person you're serving is a human with 1,000 things happening in their life, and the right time for the right product. It's like, someone on. I think we got an order. Someone on social media was like, "I was just watching with my partner in the bed with the iPad. This is a disaster. I've ordered one. I'll never have to go through that again." And then I saw, looking at analytics, a name I recognized, someone that I use, an old coworker from another city. He'd got the email, he'd been on there, he'd been in the checkout, and he hadn't bought. And I was like, oh, well, he wasn't. But then, 3 days later, he bought. And I sent him a personal message, was like, hey, man, thanks for the support. I can't wait till you get your hands on this. This is going to be awesome. And he was like, yeah, I shared it with my fiance, and, she really liked the idea, and we wanted to support you. So it was like that, this is a couple's decision. And it's also not an expensive product. So it's like, people will buy it for gifts. Maybe they're waiting and they're interested till it's their anniversary and they'll order it. Or maybe there's 1,000 reasons why they might not buy in that moment. But your list is your list. Whereas like on Facebook or on Amazon, they're never your customer. You can never reach out to that person.
Yeah, it's so true. Man, I feel like we could talk for a long time. So to wrap this up, if you could give one piece of advice to someone who is sitting on a great product but hasn't quite launched yet, what would that advice be?
If you know you can deliver, just do it. Do it sooner rather than later, because there's money out there to be yours. And if you sit on it forever, you're not going to catch any of it.
Yeah. And in hindsight, if you could redo the last like 2 months, what would you change, if anything?
I'm in it right now. It is what it is, and it's all the timing that it was meant to be. I don't know that there was a lot I could have changed, except for probably cultivating that social media earlier would be a great thing to do, just to get the practice and just to get the awareness out there and the account validation and the traction. Like, it's nobody knows the analytics, but it's really interesting. Like, my TikToks literally get 200 to 250 views a day, every day, regularly. I don't know if that's just what they're allotting it to me with. You don't know if they're staying and watching the whole thing or they're just skipping through, but it seems super interesting that that's happening.
I know.
So yeah, the longer you put in your time and create good content that resonates with an audience, the more time you have to cultivate that audience.
Well said. Awesome. Where can people find out about Big Spoon?
Bigspoonpillow.com is where we sell the Big Spoon, and all our social is on the website, but it's at Big Spoon Pillow. We got, we got the YouTube, we have Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook. We're trying to do it all. Wherever you like to hang out, we'll try to be there.
I love. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, guys. Be sure to support Brodie with a comment if you have any questions for him. And outside of that, guys, if you are looking for a hands-on mentorship program to help you through the launch process and get to your first 6 figures in revenue, be sure to check out the Product Launchpad or some of our free support tips just below this video. Outside that, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.